All right, Blake, give us a quick intro. How many properties you've bought, assigned last 10 years that you've done a lot of value. Tell us kind of your depth and experience.
Yeah, so Blake '💧💧, my wife and I, Wendy, she really runs the business. We own Express Property Solutions. Our business is out of Downers Grove. I got started in 2006 at probably the worst time you could get started. Went full-time in 2012. We focused today, we started out wholesaling, went into buying and selling turnkey rental properties, owned a property management company in 2017. I'm giving you like the quick nuts and bolts, I guess, but in 2017, we exited out of a partnership, didn't really enjoy the turnkey management business. Give Mark a lot of credit on the property management side because that was not my forte. And also I didn't really enjoy managing for other people. I rather just owning myself, I guess, right? So 2017, my wife and I switched out of that business and partnership, went full-time into like off-market, direct-to-seller marketing. And today our business looks like we wholesale and flip so we can start buying rental properties. So we got a team of, and today we got a team of about 10, 11 people, from lead managers that take phone calls to PVAs that are cold calling to acquisitions that are buying, a dispositions manager, ops manager. So today it looks like a little bit differently. I mean, I started out just like a new person, CEO, but more of the janitor and all the dirty work. That's really what you do, right? From A to Z. So that's what our business looks like today. And we've done roughly over, somewhere around 550 properties since 2012.
Somewhere around 553 exact properties.
Yeah.
One thing I love about Blake is you and me met because you just walked in my office one day.
Right.
So it was a real estate company near a house where I was living at. I think
you're in Bartlett. Yeah.
And you just walked in and introduced yourself. So that's something I take away right there in itself. Just you have a level of curiosity that I admire. That's pretty cool. So, Ryan, give an intro and provide how many foreclosures you guys have in operations in the last 10 years.
My name is Ryan Smith, director of Smith REO Group with Remax Properties. We're based out of Burr Ridge and Western Springs. We represent banks, mortgage servicing companies, investment funds on the management and disposition of their foreclosed properties. Over the last 10 years, we've sold close to 3,000 properties. We've done about 7,000 in the past 20 years. So we average about 400 or 500 transactions a year, and mainly just the disposition of vacant properties.
It's a lot of paperwork.
A lot of paperwork, a lot of headaches, yeah.
All right, well, Ryan, just for some clarification, the difference between REO, bank-owned, foreclosure, they use a lot in the same way. It doesn't even matter when people are referencing that.
Yeah, and REO stands for real estate owned. Typically, their properties are owned by mortgage servicing companies. Rarely does a bank still own the property. The mortgages are sold. If you have a house and a mortgage, a lot of times you buy your house, say you get a mortgage through Chase, you'll get a letter a month or two later say your mortgage has been sold to Shell Point, Celine, whatever. Mortgages are sold on the secondary market every day, all day. They go to mortgage servicing companies. We represent those companies, and we obtain the properties 24 hours post foreclosure sale. In the state of Illinois, there's a foreclosure sale every day. The property goes to foreclosure sale. Somebody like Mark, an investor, might go to the sale and buy it. If it doesn't sell at the sale, it reverts back to the banks as ownership. And at that point, we take possession of the property.
To the judicial sale.
Through the judicial sale, yeah.
So as far as you're not selling, so what type of percentage would you say are actually these asset management versus like traditional banks? Because I'm talking just to a bank.
Yeah, I mean, probably a traditional bank owning property is probably 5-10% of the time.
Wow.
90% of the time they're mortgage servicing companies. So a lot of times I get asked the question, well, I got a friend who works at Chase. I see the mortgage was originated with Chase. Well, that was 4 or 5 years ago, and Chase doesn't own the mortgage anymore. Very rarely do the banks still keep the mortgage. And if they do keep it, they don't service the loans. Meaning, if you have a loan and you're paying the mortgage and this and that, you're paying it to a company that, like a property management company, they're a servicing company for the bank, right? They service the tax escrows, the mortgage, and all that nature of it. So, I mean, servicing companies are a larger client.
It's a quick question.
Yeah.
No if that's happening that's making it change from the original lender, the servicing company, but that's just a unique.
No, yeah, I mean, that's just the mortgage industry, right? Now, if you get a loan from Preferred Rate, Guaranteed Rate, Chase, whoever you get a loan from, 90% of the time those loans are serviced by a company, BSI, Shell Point. I mean, there's a ton of companies that service. Yeah, yep.
Cool. Yeah. All right, Blake, I know you're a realtor, and I market this event as you being a wholesaler, though, but what do you consider yourself, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I am a realtor just to be licensed. I've never personally listed a property. My wife does that. I consider ourselves a real estate investment company today. I don't and I position myself as a real estate investor because we still flip and we're still buying and holding. If I was purely just doing wholesaling, and there's the argument, like if you're a wholesaler, that's not investing, and I would agree with that. It's sales and marketing as a traditional wholesaler, right? Because you're bringing in a funnel of leads and you're just moving the paper. So today I'd consider myself a real estate investor.
Awesome. Well, I believe it was around 2020, 2021 that wholesalers had to become licensed to be doing the operation legally.
Yeah.
What's that done for your business, and how has that helped or hurt investors wind up buying off-market deals?
Yeah, I think when it happened, when it first came out, they're like, hey, there's this new law, you got to get licensed. So like 2020 to 2022, I definitely felt like it made it easier because it kind of kicked out the out-of-state investors that are wanting to wholesale nationwide. Nationwide wholesaling has become a big thing. For various different reasons. So I felt like it made it a little bit easier. But honestly, like from what I've seen, and since it's became a law, there hasn't been a lot of case studies yet of people, of them actually cracking down on those wholesaling. So not that I want this podcast to send that out there. But my point though is in the last 2 years, I think it's like you see a lot of out-of-state investors coming into town now. So I think it's made it a little bit more competitive. So the law at first made it easier, but now that it's not being I don't think it's not regulated very closely.
I know 5-6 years ago, I know maybe a property you had, but then I see it from 2 other guys for $5 or $7 grand more.
Yeah.
Is that going away at all because of some of that stuff that changed?
Especially with us. I mean, at least for our company, one of the things that we do, we really don't wholesale anyone else's deals without signed paperwork, like partnering with them. And then we don't allow anybody to remarket our properties and mark them up. So if you're following our stuff, it's definitely, there's not as much daisy chaining, but it's still happening, I think, across the board.
Daisy chaining, that's good.
There we go.
All right, so Ryan, the last 12 months, default rates, we've heard stuff increasing. Is that something that's on the national level, or talk a little bit about national level and really what?
Nationally, you'll hear a lot of times that, foreclosures aren't there, they're not happening, which in a lot of markets nationally, there's a lot of equity in the homes, right? So when you have equity, you have less foreclosures. It's easier for a person in trouble to get out of a house if they have equity. Chicago's a unique market because we're probably the only affordable metro market in the country. When I say affordable, one of our largest buyer pools is FHA loans. FHA loan limit now I think is close to 500. You can't obtain an FHA loan in New York, Miami, San Francisco, LA, other major cities, right? So you have a smaller buyer pool of FHA loans, and a lot of our loans that default are FHA based. And the reason for that is because an FHA buyer has limited equity in the game, right? They put 3.5% down. Oftentimes it's a seller paid closing costs. So they're coming into the game with no equity. What's happened during COVID is a lot of our values were very high. I think they were overinflated. You look at markets, Jefferson Park, Berwyn, Cicero, a lot of your B-grade neighborhoods where you had a large FHA end user buyer pool. Bungalows were selling at $450, $500, $525. I think those values weren't sustainable, right? The 1920s bungalow in Berwyn's not going to go from $500 to $700. It's just not going to happen, right? Your schools don't support it. Your infrastructure of the town doesn't support it. And the style of the house is just, it is what it is. So I think we're seeing more default levels rise from people that bought during COVID, that bought at the peak of the market. Over the last couple of years, we've seen values start to correct, mainly due to interest rates, right? When you're buying at 3.5%, it's easy to afford a $500,000 house if you have make $100 grand a year. But when those rates jump to 7.5, your value drops 10, 15, 20%. So people that bought at 500 and now they're in trouble, well, now that house is worth 420, 410, they can't sell. Another factor we're seeing lead into defaults right now are property taxes. Property tax escrows push affordability out. Right? A lot of these property taxes in Cook, especially Southern Cook, are really rising at astronomical levels, and it's making it unaffordable for a lot of people.
One thing that's changed in the last handful of years, and I think you'll agree with this, is people don't buy a price point. They buy a monthly payment.
They buy a payment, yeah.
And that monthly payment is made up of the PITI, the taxes, insurance, the principal, the interest, and however you can make that the sexiest way for you flippers out there, that's what you're going after. So one other thing I want to applaud that I heard was foreclosures are always going to hit these B-level neighborhoods before they're going to hit the A-level neighborhoods.
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at these A-level neighborhoods, Oak Brook, Hinsdale, Burr Ridge, that's out. But if you go up to Park Ridge, Northbrook, Deerfield, those A-level neighborhoods, a lot of times you're going to see a lot of conventional loans. You're going to see a lot of times 20 to 30% down payment. And when you have a larger down payment, not only do you have equity in the game, but a lot of times you have liquidity to ride the storm, right? So if values do drop in your neighborhood, and you see less people with liquidity and higher down payment getting in trouble. So you see less default rates in those neighborhoods just due to the fact, hey, I bought this $700,000 house, I put $140,000, $200,000 down, I only owe $400 or $500 on the mortgage. If I'm in trouble, it's easier for them to get out of. Versus the guy who brought $1,000 to closing on a $450,000 house, it's now worth $385,000, right? And their taxes go from $500 to $7,000. It's harder for them to afford that change. So you will see more defaults in B, C neighborhoods than you do in A neighborhoods.
Awesome. We hear Illinois being considered a judicial state.
Yeah.
I guess really, what does that mean? And talk to us briefly how the timeline from the day, how long is the time frame from when somebody actually does go 3 months behind to you might hit your books to markets?
Illinois is a judicial state, and that means we have a judicial sale, right? Our foreclosure sales are held every single day. States like Texas and Georgia, they're held on what they call Super Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the month. In Illinois, they're held every day. The property goes to foreclosure sale. There's a reserve marked $100,000. If it doesn't meet that reserve, then it goes foreclosure. The timeline, if you stop paying your mortgage today and you don't have an attorney going to court for you, I think you can stay in your house for 12 to 16 months before it goes foreclosure sale. If you have an attorney and people fight it and they go ask for a continuance, you can stay in your house for 2 to 2.5 years before going to foreclosure sale. After foreclosure sale, if you're lucky enough to live in Cook County and you decide to stay in your home, you could probably get there another year before they evict you. So, you can technically stop paying today, 2024, and probably stay in the house till 2026, 2027.
And you're going to refer all as a good attorney, right?
Yeah. Yep. So,
real fast, I think you'll know this number. There's some crazy number. So when the bank does take over, that if there's somebody living there, they have to pay like $10,730.
Yeah, in Chicago, it's a Chicago. Yeah, it's a Chicago law. They call it KCRO, Keeping Chicago Rented Ordinance. They decided that if the property is a bank-owned foreclosure and it goes through foreclosure and you're a tenant in a foreclosed property, and when you say tenant, Chicago recognizes a verbal lease as an active lease. All right, so you can go to the house and they can say, yeah, I rent from Mark. I pay him $1,200 a month. That's a tenant. They don't have to provide any paperwork. You're legally binding to give them $10,600 to vacate per unit. So if you have a 4-unit, it's $10,600 per door. So it's going to cost you $50-some thousand to vacate the property. So it's not $10,600 per building; it's per door in the property. It's only in Chicago.
Are you working with clients that you actually
Yeah,
those checks?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
man, that's
yeah. We've got one client with a portfolio now. He's got like 6 occupied properties, and they're all tenant-based occupied. It's a hard money lender that we represent, and all tenants want to move, and they're all 2 units. So we've got 12 units at 10.6 each.
Oof.
So yeah.
All right, Blake.
Yeah.
Thanks. I know we'll never go back to the levels of inventory from the early 2012, 13, even 10, 11. I remember there's so much. I remember just going to certain towns. There's hundreds of properties, and none of them were private sellers. But you talk to a lot of sellers. You talk to a lot of sellers that are just wanting out now. How did the conversations change from maybe 10, 15 years ago when you started wholesaling to maybe sellers mentality today?
Yeah, I think back in 2010 to 20, I got started in 2012, I guess. So we'll go from there, like 2012 to 2016. I mean, it was more like you could run bandit signs and get people to call you, right? So I think the change has been the marketing's changed. That's been a lot different for folks getting into it. Conversations with the sellers, I mean, honestly, it's kind of the same. And what I mean by that is sellers always have an expectation that they want more than what the market bears, right? So I think that it's just really, even when the market, like, it always changes. And I think as anyone that's talking to a seller, you get the mindset of like, oh, you know, they want too much. Those are the conversations we have every single day. Like every lead that comes in, they always want anywhere from 50 to 100 grand more than what you can pay for them. So, and honestly, that's going back to 2012 until now. It's just that the market's changed. So if houses were worth 200 grand back in 2012 or 2014, you know, they wanted 180 for it, and you could only pay 100 based on the work, right? So if it's worth 350 today, 400, you know, they want 350 for it, as if it's all fixed up, and you still got to buy it for 250 to 275. So I think the mentality is like, you know, you never find great deals. It's the offer that you write that creates the great deal, right? So anytime we get a lead that comes in and we can pay for the asking price that they ask, like there's always an issue. I'll give you an example. Like we had a deal 2 weeks ago. Seller called in. It was a piece of land in Lamont, and they wanted what they want for it, like they paid $220. It sold 9 months ago for $226, and you'd sell it in 2 weeks for $160. I said lock it up immediately. And then on the way out there, I was like, something's wrong. Like this doesn't make sense. Like you just don't buy something 9 months ago, and it was fraud. It was an out-of-state investor. So like my point to that is like anytime that you get a lead that comes in that's their asking price is what you want for it, you pay, there's usually like, there's something wrong with that, right? So their expectations, to answer the question directly, is expectations are always higher than what you can pay. It's about building that relationship and how you can solve their problems. So
how many offers, or for every lead, give me some numbers here.
Yeah.
For every lead that comes in, how many do you actually, you have to talk to 100 people to get one deal?
Yeah, so if it's an SEO lead where they come in naturally through our website that's posted on the first page of Google, 1 out of every 4 leads that come in through there, we close. If it's a, you know, so that's them going on
Every 3?
1 out of 3 or 4 SEO leads that come in. If it's cold calling, so SEO means they sat down at their computer, I want to sell my house fast in Roselle, and I pull up on the first page of Google, they call me, right? So they've said, hey, I want to sell, I got distress. If I cold call you, and if I'm doing cold calling and outbound marketing where I randomly reach out and say, hey, Mark, we want to, you know, any interest in selling your house? And you're like, yeah, I guess kind of maybe. It was on my mind, but not really wanting to or feeling that pain. It's probably 1 out of 40, you know, cold calls of sellers that we talk to that actually want to sell. So if it's direct mail, it's going to be about 1 out of every 15, 1 out of 20, depending on the mail piece. So yeah, like, and then, so SEO is one way. Pay-per-click, that's probably 1 out of 8. So like we track these metrics on a daily basis. So it just really depends if it's an inbound lead versus outbound where we're reaching out to them.
And this is a numbers game. I mean, it's really easy. So
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go through some SEO or some Google out there and send out like you're spending tons of money on a monthly basis, right?
Yeah, today we're at, we've kind of settled in right around 35 grand.
A month.
A month.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's not how we got started though. I also like, that sounds great. And you're like, everyone's like, oh shit, that's awesome. Like we did this on a shoestring budget when we got started, right? So, I mean, it was bandit signs and driving for dollars. And, you know, I have a lot of ways that getting started, you don't have to spend a huge amount of money. It just takes more work to get leads.
Right. People want to find foreclosure information. We're gonna put your information up here. You're get everyone on your list here today, but I can't remember the site. It was like 2000. It was like 10, 15 years ago. It was a site you paid $100 a month. You got all the pre-foreclosure lists. I was trying to think of who you guys were going to remember it, but you know, people want if you put in foreclosure nearby, there's all this crap that you could pay for and all that. Like, how do people actually, other than being on your list, how do people find out about this stuff?
You know, those websites, what they do, and you'll see it on Zillow too. Sometimes if you look, it says foreclosure, pre-foreclosure. That just, if there's a list pendants filed, and the list pendants is just a bank filing foreclosure motion. If it was filed, then it triggers on Zillow and all these websites foreclosure.
Because it's public record, right?
Because it's public record. And a lot of times, that's not good information because a lot of times from list pendants to actual foreclosure sale, they remodify, they pay it off, they fix their problems so they don't go to foreclosure. So, I mean, those sites aren't very accurate. You can contact us for stuff that goes to foreclosure, but I mean, if you want to do it on your own, the foreclosure sale is going to be the best way, right? The most resourceful site to do that is ProBidder, I think. I know you know Bard and those guys. He runs a great program if you want to buy directly from the sale. I use ProBidder every day. I mean, we look at ProBidder every day. And that's just a website it's a paid website. You pay him and you set up an account with him, but it gives you everything that's going to foreclosure. I mean, that's probably the most reliable, realistic way to look to see what's going to sale, when it's going to sale.
Let me spin off of that because that's you bring up. ProBidder, I'll explain it if you don't mind. Is basically he's a real estate broker and he just has all the data. And I mean, for us, we used to use him. He charges. You don't have to go to downtown and go to the court steps every day. He's all 6 counties and basically pay him a commission. So he goes there. You tell him how much you want to bid. You bid. Now the kicker about judicial sales is you pay tomorrow.
Yeah,
there's no due diligence, attorney review. Like I got 2 stories on that one, but that's the thing. So what you do is you go to judicial sale and Ryan's asset management people, clients are bidding on it, and you're bidding on it, and sometimes they'll get it back, and then or sometimes the investor, like all of us here, will get it that day.
And my client, they don't really bid on. What they do is they put a number out there. Their number is 150 on the house. That's their reserve. If that number is not met, then we get it back.
Gotcha.
So you'll see if you go on ProBidder on the website, it says there's a column that says reserve or something of that nature. That's the reserve. And a lot of times they go over that. And a lot of times they don't go over that, right? We used to see probably 60% revert foreclosure, 40% sell at the foreclosure sale to a third party, and third party would be investors. Now that number is kind of shifting the opposite way, right? You're seeing some more investors. Investors are more active there. You're seeing less people go for REO. We were seeing that for the last couple of years. Now it's starting to shift again back to more REO, less investors. And we see more REO in Chicago there's a higher percentage rate of investors buying in DuPage, Will, the collar counties. And that mainly goes back to the occupied status and how hard it is to evict people. Right? A lot of investors aren't buying in Chicago or Cook County from the sale because they know they got to pay the 10-6. They know they got to go through the eviction process. And it could be a year, 2 years before they get the assets. So
what we're saying is you could actually even beat Ryan and again all the way early on in the process, but there's tons of risk, and that's a whole other episode if we want to talk about.
Yeah, and like he said, if you buy it from the sale, you wire the money same day, so you got to be cash same day. You have no idea what's going on with the property. You've got to assume HOA fees if it's a townhouse, any water bills, village violations, occupancy issues, anything like that. You're assuming it all, and you really don't have time to go and try to do diligence. I mean, you can do a little bit of diligence, but it's a riskier step.
ProBidder at least tries to pull all the public data for you to at least know what maybe you should be looking at. But you could inherit bankruptcy filings against the property sometimes.
How much time do you usually have for when it's listed on ProBidder to actually directly drive by,
Yeah.
do they have a time window from when they post the property?
Yeah, I mean, I can look to see what's going to sale next month, right? What's scheduled for sale for next month. But it changes a lot of things. Say there's 100 properties going to sale October 2nd. 20, 30 of those can be canceled between now and then. They can be rescheduled for the sale. There could be 20 more properties added, right? The best way we like to do is we'll go on a Sunday night, see what's going for that week, and then look at the dates of the town. All right, we'll drive by this one and look at it. So, I mean, if
You go like no more than a week in advance.
yeah, because I mean, otherwise you're spinning your wheels. So you can look at a property in Itasca that's going to sale October 1st. You say, oh, I love this one. And then you show up October 1st and it's not there. You're like, wait, what happened? We're seeing a lot of cancellations of sales now, and they just delay the process.
I used to put a lot of spinning in the wheels.
Yeah.
And because it could be that the week before it's going to sale, the homeowner went to court and got an extension.
Exactly.
And they kicked it back.
And they're doing a lot of that right now. You'll see a lot of cancellations the day of, the morning of.
Wow.
And
Well, I guess question, how soon, yeah, and because how soon, like, the morning of, can the attorney cancel it?
Yeah.
Like, if the owner hires an attorney, they can still get it stopped the morning of the sale,
Yeah, they can extend the sale.
right? So,
Yeah, I mean, we've went to buy stuff. It's happened to us a few times. We went
Yeah.
to buy on Pro Bidder. We had interest in a property. We go and we log in at 8 o'clock in the morning. Like, what happened to it?
yeah, we ran into that this year a few
cancel.
times, and I didn't know if I was just lucky on getting it stopped or if it was really that consistent you could get it stopped.
Yeah, I mean, you can get it stopped day of.
It's the title, clean title.
Right, do you turn around, let's say you're successful and you get something on Pro Bidder, do you turn around and list that thing? Because I've seen your listing, so
No. So
this will get a profit.
if it,
But they do, is it, you have all these other stuff.
yeah, if anything that we buy on Pro Bidder, we don't end up living. I mean, we buy Pro Bidder mainly for rental. I mean, we don't really.
Just kind of separate what.
Yeah, I'm separating it from professionally. Personally, we go through Pro Bidder. Professionally, if a property goes REO sale today, the state of Illinois has a 60-day confirmation period, where the buyer can confirm the sale has to confirm. 99% of the time, the buyer never redeems the sale, or the seller, the prior owner never makes whole. But Illinois offers a confirmation period. Once that confirmation period expires, then we get deed. We become the legitimate owner. If the property is vacant, post-confirmation, we'll list the house probably 10 to 14 days post-confirmation. The property's occupied, we've got to work through cash for keys, eviction, or whatever it's needed.
You don't list it on professional end until it's basically ready to be purchased by someone.
Yeah. I mean, once confirmation expires, we have to trash the house out, clean up the landscape, and get it all ready, and then we can list it. So typically, if it goes to sale, what month is it? September?
Yeah.
If it goes to sale now, we probably will list it December if all is well, if all goes right. No.
Now, the difference between buying as the judicial sale versus buying it from you in December is really clean title.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to issue a
That's
clean
the big
title.
thing, that's
Water
the
bill's going
real
to be paid to zero. Liens are any village violations, fine-wise are going to be paid. Now, if the village wants a kitchen taken out of the second floor and they have a lengthy inspection, that's still going to be the buyer's responsibility on an REO, right? The bank's not going to clear up the village inspection list. Villages, you don't see as many village inspections out this way, right? Itasca, Addison, Bloomingdale, they don't have them. You'll find village inspections, ironically enough, in more villages where they don't have as much financial backing within the village.
In Melrose Park, where they want to get rid of 3 units in a single
Melrose
family.
Park, Maywood, I just sold a 2-unit Maywood. The village came in and said, it's been vacant for a year, it's gotta go back to a single family. It's been a 2-unit for 30 years, but they've gotta convert it back. And the buyer's gotta assume that, right? We're not gonna fix it, but you're gonna see those a lot in Melrose Park, Berwyn, Maywood, Bellwood, Cicero, and then your south suburbs, South Holland, Dalton, Harvey, Park Forest. The suburbs that have more fiscal irresponsibility, I could say, I guess, right? You're gonna see a lot more ways for them to get money. And a lot of that is higher transfer stamps, village inspections, village escrows. Stone Park requires a $25,000 escrow a lot of times, right? I mean, so those villages hurt themselves in the long run because less people want to invest in the village. So the values never really rise. The village remains fiscally in the hole. It's, well, if you come out to Itasca, the village is in good shape. People are spending money. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
So to kind of summarize my original question of like people go online and they're looking
Yeah.
at this data, they really only have a couple options of they could go the judicial sale route.
Or they can call me.
Or they can wait for it to
Yeah.
come to you. But a lot of these other places is just simply public data being aggregated from.
Yeah, and then they're trying to
sites.
get you to pay $9.99 a month to get it. And if they get 5,000 people that pay $9.99 a month, they really don't care what you do with the data, right? I mean,
It's called the business.
yeah, they're making money at that point.
On most of this topic you're just talking about, after you attain them, and you're not refiling them, you're just taking out lighter things, and being you're flipping them along the market, you're selling them.
Correct.
Your ROI, percentage-wise,
I don't, on the REO side, we don't look for an ROI.
then
We sell for the bank, so we're not putting money into the home or we're not using our money to buy the house. I'm basically real,
what do you mean?
I don't buy it.
Okay, you don't.
Professionally, I don't buy it.
Okay.
I represent the bank. So instead of a realtor going out and representing you to sell your house, my clients are the banks, right? So I sell the house for them. And I obtain a commission off that. But we don't buy the house, rehab it, and then go for an ROI from the foreclosure sale on what I do on the REO side.
So when you're at that stage, you have things that'll, how do you sell it? Is it a bidding process? Do you just put it about on site, first come, first serve, where you buy?
No, our properties are all listed on the MLS. You know, oftentimes it must be on the market for 7 days before we can accept an offer. And we put on the MLS, and as offers come in, we review them and accept them. The only time we'll go through a bidding process if we're selling an occupied property and there's no access, but majority of the time we put on the MLS, and that's how we sell it.
Your list will be the ones that you've already listed. Someone can theoretically find out in MLS, but in your list.
Yeah, but and we also send out, you know, we do evaluation on the property prior to it going on the market.
You get heads up.
Yeah, we'll give you a heads up about a week or two before. You know, we send out a list once a week, once every other week of what we have coming up, and you probably get a 10 to 14 day lead time to look at the house before it hits the MLS. So yeah.
All right, Blake, similar question about wholesalers. How do people, do people just call Vandasize and say, put me on your list? How do people, do they go online and find other wholesalers and say, hey, I don't want to sell, but I'm an investor? Like, how do people get into that world?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for properties, I think you should get on everyone's wholesale list, right? And just get your inventory. I think the other thing you should be doing is getting your get an area where you want to invest at and get really focused. That's the first thing I tell everybody, because I see too many people that want to buy in South Holland, then they're in Waukegan, and then they're in Elgin, and they're all over the place, and you're like the master, jack of all trades, master of none, and never really get to know a market. So as newer people getting into deals and wholesaling, I mean, find 5, 10 towns that are all together that you want to get focused on. And then easiest thing to do is driving for dollars, looking for houses that have distress, and you can load them into an app that's called like Deal Machine or PropStream, or you can just handwrite them down for right now. And then if you use one of those apps, you can skip trace them to call them, and then also look up the mailing address, because if they're vacant, the tax bill might be going somewhere else. So we'll mail to another, to the mailing address of the tax bill, and you can send out handwritten letters, or you can send postcards. Either one work, right? So the same thing, that's like the cheapest and most outbound way to do it. You can also, in those same towns, I would be getting to know every realtor. I'd get to know every probate and estate company in that, attorneys. Get to know, like, if you get to know the realtors, like, they have off-market deals. And I think you need to become, you guys don't need to buy 10, 15 houses. I mean, if you want to buy 10 or 15 houses a year, that's awesome. But what would 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 do for you in the next 12 months, right? What can that change in your life? And I'll tell you right now, I mean, we're doing a package of 5, we're refinancing 5 properties that we rehabbed, and we got $800,000 in equity and $200,000 cash out. I mean, just like that's a game changer just for my wife and I's portfolio, right? So that's just 5. So don't worry about going everywhere. Just become the master, and that way when houses come up in those 10 zip codes. Now you've walked several houses, the values, the type of rehab that has to be done, and you became the expert in those areas, and so you can move quickly on them. So that's where I think, the driving for dollars, cold calling, you could pull a list, pull a probate list. Like Val's doing probates right now, right? And she's mailing, she's sending out mailers on the probate side. And it's gonna take, you've been doing it I think she's been doing it for 4 or 5 months, but brand new, never talked to sellers, and starting to build up and talk to sellers and getting better and more comfortable with it. I guarantee in 6 more months, she'll have bought probably 2 or 3 houses from it. And she's gonna be better than she was 6 months ago, right? So I think it takes time and getting outside your comfort zone of doing those things. But pull probate lists, you can pull pre-foreclosure lists, you can pull tired landlords in those areas, and then it's just being out there and knocking on doors, get a little crazy, You can knock on the neighbor's door if it's a house. I mean, on the way here, I'm literally driving and I saw 7 houses like just this morning. I'm like, ooh, if I was doing what I say I do, and I should I should upload those 7 into my list and have my team call them on Monday, right? Like, it's like just being out and about and doing things. It's just taking action on that as far as like, cold calling, texting, sending mailers to those folks.
Deal Machine's a very affordable tool for that. I'll send you guys the episode. We just did a podcast with them, and he kind of broke down all the different things, different lists that investors can do. We actually we signed up a Deal Machine, and we use it for the property management side. So we pulled 8,000 out of state owners in Schaumburg. And so like our goal is to approach them around property management. So Deal Machine creates a tool for not just wholesaling, but just several different aspects around real estate investing.
Yeah, and you can literally hit a button, skip trace it, gives you the phone number. You could call them right on the spot, right? Hey, I'm outside your house right now. I can see you, like making, like you're the one doing the lawn right now, right? So it's pretty easy. Yeah.
Come on, check it out. They're not sponsoring this episode or anything, but all right, Ryan. Going through the transaction of a Banco property is way different than selling from Joe Seller. I went through, bought property with you recently, and my gosh, I forgot all the damn hoops you got to jump through to get it.
Yeah.
Talk about how it's a little different than a market deal. The paperwork side.
There's a lot of paperwork to it, right? If you're buying in an LLC, the signer of the LLC, the proof of funds has to match, right? So you can't give me GC Realty's LLC and then funds for Blake.
Well, first off, you'd have to provide funds.
You have to provide, if you're buying cash, you have to provide a proof of funds. And the proof of funds has to match whoever's signing in the contract. So,
Which has to match the managing member.
the managing member of the LLC, right? There has to be a paper trail where the money's coming from, right? Blake can't sign on GC's purchase and have the funds in Mark's name, right? Like the money, you have to see the managing member of GC. Now, if you give me a proof of funds for a different LLC, I just had one guy buy a property in one LLC. His proof of funds was another LLC. So now I need the LLC docs for that proof of funds with LLC is to show the person is the same. So your LLC docs and your proof of funds have to be in the same order. You pretty much you want to waive inspection to make your offer stand out. If it's a cash offer, we're asking for 10% earnest money. So if you're buying a $200,000 house, we want $20,000 earnest money. Ideally a quick close. We'd like to see it close in 2 to 3 weeks if you're cash. If you look at the house and there's no water on, there's no gas on, assume that's how you're going to buy the house. We really don't like putting water and gas and utilities on for investors.
You could do an inspection, but you're buying.
You can do an inspection, but you're signing off as is. You're assuming everything on it. One way to be on our not really like to do deals with you in the future is you buy a house from us. You say, oh yeah, we've seen it. You go under contract, and you come back and you ask for a $15,000 reduction because the furnace sold or the plumbing doesn't work. As is means as is. That's a big misconception. A lot of people are like, well, I'll buy it, then I'll get the price down from the bank after I go under contract because they need to sell it to me. We really don't need to sell it to you. We have thousands of other people that would buy the house. And that's a big misconception too that we see. The bank, consumers or the general public investors think, oh, the bank needs to get it off their book. Look, by the time you're seeing the property, they bought, sold, taken a loss, and made so many times they don't need to get it off their books. Right? That's a misconception. Another misconception is, well, I saw they gave a mortgage for $200,000. I'll give you $210 for it when it's worth $260 on the fair market value, right? We're not going to give it away for $210 just because the mortgage originated $200,000. The mortgage history of the home has nothing to do with the value of what we're selling the house for today. We sell the house for what we call fair market value. If comps are 400 rehab, this house needs 150,000. At a base of 250, add some equity in there. We might put on the market for 214.9, 209.9, whatever. There's upside there somewhere, but yeah, we're not giving homes away based on what the mortgage originated at either.
So a lot of what's common sense to the normal person's finances, the asset managers don't always think like that.
Yeah.
Because I know you might put it out, if it goes on the market for 200, you put an offer for 180, they may not accept it. and then 2 weeks later they drop it to 175.
Right, yeah,
So,
yeah,
like,
no,
some of these
yeah.
common sense things. Just
You know, a lot of times the first 30 days on the market, we've got to be pretty close to list price. I mean, to get it done. Now,
don't waste your time coming in.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, if something's on for 200, don't say, well, I'll give you 150 for it. You know, you got to sell it. Typically, how they look at it is before they take that 150 offer on a $200,000 house, in 30 days, we'll drop it to 184.9. We'll see what activity that drums up. There's no urgency to move these houses in lightning speed. Now, once we're under contract, we want to close quickly, right? But there's no real urgency, no.
Gotcha. I appreciate that. Yeah, the contract. So all of that running around, the funds matching, and all that all happens before they sign off on the contract.
Yeah, we have to have everything before they sign off on it. We need a copy of an earnest money check certified. There's a large seller's addendum. And a lot of times people are like, well, I have to have my attorney read it first. No, we really have 48 hours to get the whole package back to the bank. You have a 5-day attorney review period in the state of Illinois. You're entitled to have your attorney review it. While you waive inspection, you still have your attorney review period, so they can review it after we sign the addendums. A lot of times people say, well, I need my attorney to look at it. We'll get it back to you in 5. We'll go to the next offer. We're not going to wait for you.
The problem is they run into is if you are paying, a loan, then your loan times, if it takes you a week to get everything signed and all that stuff, now your loan's taking that much longer to get going, which you've already promised them you're going to close in 30 days. So it's all screwed. So you got to be on top of your stuff before you write that off.
Yeah.
So, right, why are people doing inspections if price is what it is?
So, I mean, a lot of times people do it for their own knowledge, right? They know, okay, once I close, I've got to do the plumbing, the roof's bad. You know, you can look at a roof and say, well, it might need to be redone, or you can look at a furnace and say it looks older, right? But people do inspections for their own base knowledge, so they know what they have to fix going into it.
Are they able to back out of the deal? Or is there like a 10,000 fund fee?
For the attorney review period.
Yeah, I mean, you can, of course you can.
Well, how much money are you going to lose? Dust.
In the state of Illinois, earnest money is a joke in the state of Illinois.
But one.
Earnest money means nothing in the state of Illinois. I mean, if we're being honest, right? How much can you lose? I'd like to keep your earnest money. In order to keep your earnest money, both sides have to mutually agree to release the earnest money.
So what earnest money dollar amount do you require for your offers?
I don't require, I don't set that because I'm not selling the house, right? It's always the seller's ultimate decision. But typically 10% on cash offers, 5% on financing. But in the state of Illinois, for us to retain the earnest money, your attorney has to agree to give it to us. If your attorney says, no, I'm not going to sign the release, we can't say, well, we're keeping it. The attorney can say, okay, well, we'll record the earnest money against the house, and you have to release it before selling it. The state of Illinois has done a horrible job with making earnest money what it should be.
If 2 years later or a year later you're forced to send it out of the state, they hold the money.
And they hold it, so.
But you do have the point, I just want to make sure to clear it, is you do have the opportunity, if you go in contract today, you have the attorney review to back out from any reason.
Yeah, you can during attorney review, and look, you can do it during attorney review, and earnest money will 99% of the time always go back to you in the state of Illinois. There's no recourse for a seller, whether you're a residential seller or a bank seller, there's no recourse for a buyer backing out of a deal to a seller in the state of Illinois because our earnest money system is a joke.
I'll say something. The bigger risk so first off, I'll ask the question about inspection. We'll still go get an inspection because we want to kind of like, all right, is there anything else we missed here? Because especially if you're going to flip it, you want to see what that inspection is going to look like on the backside. So you might, it might be the attic, it might be something.
Yeah.
Something you can fix. It might not be expensive, but now it's on your radar at least. Or worst case scenario is like, holy crap, this is way bigger than we thought. I'm going to cancel. But I think the bigger thing I'll put out there is when you're working with wholesalers, these two guys or guys like these, if you're back on deals all the time, they're probably not going to be accepting your first future deal.
Yeah, I mean,
You might get one as a grace period, and maybe you got send the guy flowers or whatever, and say sorry, but
There may or may not be a list.
there may not be. Yeah.
I mean, Mark knows a guy that we won't work. We don't really work with him because every time he goes on a contract, he wants to renegotiate. It's
I thought, what's the right? I've seen people in your position, realtors who represent foreclosures, who have said, if you're going to make this offer and you back out, there's a $5,000 fee no matter what that you have to agree to.
I mean, I don't know where that fee would come from. Aside from earnest money,
Because they've had too many people back out on the deal.
I don't know where the fee would come from. Who would you pay it to?
Whether the buyer has to agree to pay it.
So they're making their earnest money hard money, which if you make your earnest money hard, that means it's.
I mean, we do that sometimes too. 90% of the time, even if it's hard, if you have an attorney look, attorneys have ruined what earnest money should be, right? Because the buyer's attorney will always fight the seller's attorney. Now if the table's turning, that's buyer's attorney is now representing the seller. The attorneys have diluted what earnest money should be in Illinois.
I got one last question for you guys, and then we're going to open up to any other questions. Lance, can you change the slide so we go to the next slide so we have the QR codes again? Check out. All right. So I'll ask you guys both a similar question. Blake, other than you guys, what are the resources that these guys can find for getting off-market properties or not traditional seller type properties? What would you recommend to them?
Where to go? Not to get. Say it again.
All right, so where can they find more of you, more people like you?
Yeah.
More opportunities off-market, I guess, for you specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I think you go to any, like, if you're looking for other wholesale companies, I mean, if you jump on.
And what do they say? So they're going to, if any of these people didn't know you here today, they called you up. What do you want to hear to make them feel like, hey, this guy, actually, I might do business with this guy?
Yeah, we want to know that I think if you called me and said, hey, Blake, I'm an investor and I want to buy in the Roselle, 𝗏 area, you know, I haven't bought anything yet. That's fine, but I have my money figured out. Either I have cash or I got a couple lenders I'm working with. And so knowing that you actually have lenders, you have your money known, and then just kind of have an idea of what you're looking for. And then beyond that, and you can send a proof of funds, right? I think those are like right out of the gates. Right if you don't, and you're kind of stumbling around, then I just know that we're going to end up wasting our time. I think knowing your numbers, like construction numbers and that, can make quick decisions. That's something that we're looking for from our people. So that are buying from us. If you're looking to get on a wholesaler's list, I mean, I think if you just typed in "sell my house fast," you'll see a lot of companies that pop up that are looking to buy properties, but they're actually probably wholesaling them as well. So you could get on those lists and then go into any Facebook pages in Chicago, putting your name out there that you're looking for off-market properties. You're gonna get bombarded, and it's probably, you know, a little bit overly spammed, but eventually, you know, you're gonna find the right people, and like not just the newbies and the out-of-state people as well, those that are doing deals.
Funds. Yeah. What are red flags that they should stay away from? Like
red flags.
When you hear, you're like, man, you know, I'm not gonna work that guy. Or I'm not wasting my time putting that guy onto my list.
Yeah, so if I ask you if like, hey, have you done any deals? No, like my partner and I, like, my partner, like that's a red flag that you probably can't buy. So just, you know, be honest, like who your partner is. And I wouldn't even bring that up because it's in today's age, when I hear partner, I automatically know you don't have the money and can't close. So that's my immediate opinion.
So that's your red flag right there.
Biggest one. So.
Any other red flags?
I mean, I think just being transparent. Like if you need an inspection period, if you don't have the money but sign, I mean, I think those are just being the most transparent, because I think we want to help new people too. Like we all, like I was new one day, like we all started at zero, and we want to help, but it's those that are like lying, and then like you want to buy it and like, yeah, I'm going to sign, and then you don't sign, or you sign something and you don't turn in earnest money right away. I mean, those are all signs that, like, as soon as we sign a contract and we don't get earnest money the next day, like I'm already like, yeah, this person's flaking. I
heard something on a podcast recently where this is like the dream team scenario where you have a wholesaler like yourself might have a private lender, and that private lender then lends to the flipper as well too. So the private lender really wins because their money keeps working for longer and they get a couple more fees along the way. Do you ever see anything like that happen?
I'm seeing more than that, like the guys that have been around longer. It's actually something that we're starting to entertain a little bit too, and starting to lend on some of our deals. So there's another avenue to create income streams for our company.
Love it. Right. Where else should people check out for resources around FACO and foreclosures, type stuff like that? We're throughout ProBidder.
Yeah, I mean, really, ProBidder or email me, we'll get you on our list. There's not a lot of, it's a very quiet niche, I guess you could say. There's not a ton of stuff out. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. Not a lot of it's good stuff. A lot of it's these companies that try to get you to pay and sign up, and there's nothing really that comes of it.
There's 5-6 of you called REO guys that are really big. They're called doing 80% of the deals back when the market crashed. A lot of those guys have gone away. Do you expect them to come back? You've kind of stuck with REO.
Yeah, I mean, I've stuck with. There's a few guys that are still around that do it. You know, I don't know. The business has changed so much since the last crash. I mean, it's just become a lot more fee-based, a lot more task-driven, a lot more micromanagement.
By the asset management company.
Yeah,
over
yeah.
someone like yourself.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to make money today than it was 10 years ago, right? There's a lot more day-to-day stuff that's
They're expecting you to do a lot more.
a lot more. So I don't know, a lot of people, it's not a very easy industry side to make money. And look, my average sales price is probably $150,000, $160,000, right? I've got to close 25, 30 properties a month. I've got to do, $3 million in volume a month times 100,000. You know what I mean? So it's a lot more strenuous work from a broker standpoint doing REO, and there's a lot more. Hey, you gotta have somebody cover this water read. You gotta go to the eviction. And you've got to have a lot of money up front, right? You got to fund cash for keys. So I don't think a lot of people are going to come back and do it just because it's hard. It's hard to manage every day.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah, well, I want to thank you very much for sitting on
thank
here
you.
today. Everyone, you give these two jobs and thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And then any questions anyone has?
So revisit the earnest money thing, and this is from a specific constraints. If the whichever side of the property says, I'm waiting to turn into review, and you do provide with this money, is that one of the circumstances where you're solubility?
Look, my opinion of it is, if you do anything outside the term of the contract, your earnest money should be held by the seller. So if you have no inspection period and you find something wrong and you want to back out, sorry, you just put that. I think my perception of earnest money should be for the seller to know that the deal is a good deal. If you waive attorney review, of course the seller should retain the earnest money. The problem lies in the states that the seller's attorney and the buyer's attorney have to both agree to mutually return the earnest money to the seller. If you waive attorney review period and you don't have an attorney, then yeah, I guess the seller would keep the earnest money. If you waive attorney review period, but you still have an attorney review your contract, review those things, chances that attorney can get your earnest money back are 99%, right?
I'm the biggest broker, so I didn't go through all these. We do commercial, industrial stuff, so we got some bigger 150,000 earnest money where someone says hard, and then they go back and they change their mind and they fight for it. So if, like he's saying, there's a piece of paper that two people, both sides going to sign the paperwork, are signed to release. But if they're going to hit, one party is going to say, no, we're not going to, or yes, they're not going to agree, then you have to file a suit.
It's easier for the seller to just say, forget it, and release the earnest money. Look, if you're fighting for it,
It's a five. We probably have 20,000 because we all know attorney fees and
if you're fighting for it, it's easier to say, forget it, because as the buyer's attorney and the seller say, no, I'm not giving you the earnest money, boom, boom, boom. Buyer's attorney can say, fine, we'll record the earnest money against the property. So now they put a lien on the house with the earnest money. The seller can't sell that house again until they rectify the earnest. Look, we're going to fight for it. A lot of times we can't fight, forget it, and we'll move on. I mean, that's every seller in the state, right? It's not just my sellers.
it comes out, Illinois is setting up where it's one of those moments where you're talking to the attorney and it's like, choose your battles.
Yeah.
And usually that's one that's totally distracting and not one that people think. And that's part of the problem.
And it's a problem where earnest money has become and as an industry, we've failed to make earnest money what it should be, right? Earnest money should be, and it sucks for a buyer, but it keeps the deals more fluid. Like, all right, if I have 20,000 earnest money, the seller has a good reassurance this buyer's going to proceed. And the buyer's not going to be as willing to, yeah, I'll throw an offer, and if they know that the earnest money is realistic, right? We failed as an industry and as a state to enforce the penalties what earnest money should be.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
I can push. Go over it.
I thought I would just kind of clarify one more time. I know it's a very complex, nuanced process, full judicial sale leading up to where you guys are at. But just for clarification's sake, so fire defaults on the property, then it gets notice and then notice, right? And then the next step would be going to
Foreclosure sale. That's the next goal.
the event. If it doesn't get purchased at that time for that reserve amount or more, it then goes to your asset manager, who then disposes it to grow.
Correct.
Who then you handle it.
Yep.
So in theory, though, is like someone wanted to get ahead of it and jump at it during that foreclosure sale. is there that risk that we were talking about of all those potential liens and all that shit that
Yeah.
whereas when you then your asset manager's taking over, they will clear all those.
Correct.
So basically the major benefit to just waiting for you to get a hold of it would be that at least you have the, you know, the awareness that it is.
Well, yeah, you're going to get a vacant property from us and you're going to get a clean title. From the sale, from the sale, you might, from the sale, there's a good chance you're going to buy it occupied and you don't know what you're getting into. If you buy an occupied property, you're now the owner of the house.
Make sure that it.
But to piggyback off of that, what you said, if it doesn't meet that mark, but you reserve it goes to you. So is it going for sale from your company or from the bank's company for hire then?
Fair market value, yeah.
But it depends though, because think about the time frame. And now and the one that doesn't get sold at the judicial sale next month sits through a winter and the pipe breaks. And so we've tried to buy properties at judicial sale and we didn't get bid or whatever, and then it goes through the process. We buy it a year later for a hell of a lot cheaper. Well, now we got to deal with fire damage or whatever it might be.
And a lot of times that reserve value is based on pre-foreclosure values that the banks have, right? So what they do is while the property's going through the foreclosure process, they'll pay a company to do what they call a drive-by valuation on the home. And they get internal values and they look at a red bell, and a red bell is an internal system that they use to set a value, what they feel the house is going to be worth, right? Sometimes those reserves are too high, and that's one of the reasons it doesn't sell, right? And once we get it back, like Mark said, we get inside the house, and while their value might be $150, we get inside in the kitchen strip, the floors are buckled, the value changes based on fair market value. So sometimes it might be more, sometimes it might be less. There's really no indication.
You might take some of those risks though for it's next door to your house. It's next to another. It's in a neighborhood. You keep trying to get as bad as you can to the town that you know that the bear's coming. That's it. So sometimes those risks is why you're willing to take it.
Go. Ryan, you said that when someone would buy a property from you, do you have someone on staff, or is it you that determines what the construction budget would be on the property and you pack it out that way?
Yeah, I mean, when I do a value, I don't give a buyer the construction budget, right? Because your budget's going to be different than what I might. I look at a house and I say, okay, boom, boom, boom needs to be done. I have a budget in mind of what I think it needs to be, right? How I set the values, ideally, I'm going to look for other distressed assets in the area when I set a value. And then I'm going to look at repair. Like, for example, I got one at 85th and Damon. The house next door just sold for $260. Same house, but it was fully rehabbed, right? I know it's going to take my house in today's market. It's a brick ranch, 1,200 square feet. It's going to take $120 to get to that number. So I'll take that $260 number minus $120. All right, I got a $140 basis. Now I've got to add in some equity. So I think the value of my house, based on that house next door selling rehabbed, my value is probably $120, right? Based on what I think the house needs. But we're not getting bids. We're not going through. These are all estimates off. All right, paint's $450 a square foot. Appliances are $2,100. I know what. I have an idea. I don't know of what costs are, right? And I'll estimate it, and I'll put it in. I'll say to the bank, this is what it's going to cost to repair it. Estimate it, and yeah. So.
Are you selling any Fannie type loans or like that stuff you find in HUD Home Store? I guess we need to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our loans are Fannie Freddie originated.
Okay.
You know, you'll see if there's a 21 first day look period on a property, it's a Fannie originated loan.
And you're doing some of those too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about HUD?
No, we don't do any HUD. But Fannie and Freddie, we service. A lot of Freddie and Fannie loans are also serviced outside of Freddie and Fannie, right? So, you know, and then they're bought on a secondary market. And if Goldman Sachs buys a portfolio of Fannie loans and they service it through XYZ servicing, they still have to follow the Fannie Mae guidelines on, hey, look, it's got to be, we like an owner occupant in the first 21 days. We're doing this, we're doing that. So that's how Fannie
So your client might not necessarily be Fannie or Freddie. What about HUD Home Store, that website? That's something that people can check out. Any experience with that?
No, I don't really, no.
All right. So anyone check out that HUD Home Store? So these are all VA failed properties that, Sometimes there's a lot, sometimes there's a little, but you can set up alerts and all that. But you have to work with a specific broker.
Brian,
Yeah.
when you're underwriting the homes that you're purchasing for your group, how are you underwriting and taking into consideration this new law that's coming into effect where you're going to have to replace any lead service lines? And how is that?
It's a buyer's responsibility. Town of Cicero makes you do that if the house been vacant for more than a year, you have to replace the whole sewer line. That's not our responsibility.
But I'm talking about the service line from the B box to the house if it's lead.
That's what Cicero, if a property's been vacant for a year, if in town of Cicero, they're making you replace that.
The buyer.
The buyer, we're not a buyer. We were awarded the property through foreclosure sale. You're the buyer buying it from us.
But you said you're purchasing some houses yourself for your investments.
Right.
You underwrite those, and you're the buyer in that case. Are you underwriting?
We don't buy in, we try to stay away from Cook County, personally.
Because
Property taxes. Yeah, I mean, property taxes, village requirements, eviction sale, I mean.
Just the unknown.
Yeah, I mean, Cook County's a horrible county.
but what experience are
You have any with certain towns, because I'm like, Maywood is contributing some money towards that line. Other towns haven't even evaluated it yet. Have you had any situations where you had no choice but to replace that?
Yeah, I mean, we see I have investors that buy from us to do it all the time.
Yeah, you're talking about sewer line, he's talking about supply
I'm
lines.
talking about the service line.
No, the
from
from the D-box into the house, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
And how will they know that they're gonna have to replace it?
a lot of times it's on the pre-sale inspection. You have to upgrade the line coming into the house.
Oh, it'll say it.
It'll say it on the pre-sale inspection. We put the pre-sale inspection on the MLS. You see you have to do it. Look, it's expensive.
So if you're selling a property in Elmwood Park, you're already going and having that inspection.
Yeah, we have our inspection done the
Okay.
time of, once confirmation that we have the inspection
So
done.
you guys do it right away, you're not waiting for
Right,
it.
yeah, and then we put on the MLS and you know what's coming
And
from.
you're agreeing to that, so that's another thing is when you're buying in these towns, make sure you're looking at
Yeah.
what you're agreeing to.
I mean, the other thing you gotta remember too, like if you're adding bathrooms, right? So then like, is the water line big enough?
Right.
Yeah,
So
can't change
the reason the way you learn it is if you make the mistake. That's probably, but like, you know, I mean, it's knowing those codes in those towns. And that's where the experience comes in. Sometimes it's on the job experience and the checks you cut, and then you don't ever have to cut them again.
It's basically how much a quarter-inch large of a pipe can ruin your.
Right.
Like they said, you're like the realtors.
She is.
So could you talk a little bit about uptime advantage if that's very similar?
So so like in 2017, our realtor at the time hurt herself because she's like, Wendy, you should just get licensed for all the houses that you guys are flipping. So Wendy's gotten licensed and she lists our properties that we flip, and then our leads that come in that like, hey, I want to sell fast for cash, and it's, you know, they bought it 4 years ago and it's beautiful. Like we can kick those leads to her. So I mean, I think it's, you know, the advantage is. It's brought in probably, you know, it's definitely a free six-figure income for us. Oh, well, she wouldn't say it's free because she works, but that's gonna hurt. But monetizing our leads versus us giving away, so she lists a lot of our own leads, and we monetize it that way. Yeah. Good question.
But so I use Zillow to search, and it's got like another feature for properties that aren't on the MLS.
Yeah.
Most of those will say auction.com. What process of the foreclosure?
auction.com, 90% of the time they're occupied properties the bank is trying to sell. They've already been a foreclosure sale. The bank owns them. Somebody like myself has the property and it's in an occupied status. So a lot of times they'll put them on auction.com to try to get an auction run out of it and see if you'll buy it.
Before you have to go through the.
Before they vacate it. So it's kind of like another foreclosure, you know, a sheriff's sale in essence, right? Before we vacate the house, yeah.
So I'm buying it with a lot of unknowns in that process, that point as well.
90% of the time you're buying it occupied and you're buying it with a lot of unknowns if it's on auction.com. Sometimes we'll do vacant stuff on auction.com. A couple servicers do it, but not really. Look, there's not a lot of upside to the servicing company to sell it on auction.com, right? There's not a lot of upside to the consumer. Auction.com charges a 5% fee regardless. Regardless if you close now, you're paying them 5% on a credit card. So if it's a $100,000 house, you're paying $5,000 off top.
They're putting a lot of traditional pre
Stuff.
stuff you might find at Chrome Turf, putting some of that stuff on there as well too. But you then have to physically go yourself to the auction and follow the rules.
Yeah.
This probator will kind of give you the guide to hold your hands through the whole process.
That auction.com, is it better than to have properties that are in Indiana? Is that potentially, if they are, there are people in them, it's easier to get them out?
I mean, I don't know Indiana. I don't do any work in Indiana.
what? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Like, I didn't even hear half the
Yeah. Yeah, but I was gonna say everything's better in Indiana, right? I mean, look, everything's better in Will County, DuPage County, Lake County, McHenry County.
Except for rents in Indiana.
Yeah. You know, I mean, you can
The taxes are so much lower.
if you take politics aside and you look at blue states, blue counties, red counties, your counties that are more red, more conservative, more fiscally responsible are going to be better counties to invest and do business in. From an eviction standpoint, from a violation standpoint, from a rent standpoint, from a tenant type of standpoint, your fiscally better counties and communities are going to be better to invest in.
It's amazing. We have it's what do we call it? High risk list. But like the third column is what county it's in. Because like a lot of our high risk columns we have in property management really it might not be up there because it's in DuPage, but it's definitely up there because it's in Cook.
Yeah. And you take politics aside, but your blue state, the blue states or the blue counties are typically more fiscally irresponsible. Chicago's got $1 billion budget deficit, right? Versus you go to Indiana versus Illinois, I mean, they're better. Your property taxes are better in DuPage County than they are in Cook, right? It's across the board. Politics aside, they're better managed. They're easier to do business in. There's less interference, right? You're not going to go to Itasca and they're going to give you a list of 50 things to do and then tell you, give me $20,000 escrow up front before you do the repairs in the village, and we got to come out and micromanage it. You're just not going to see it.
You know, a town like Itasca is not worth them having another person on the payroll to even have to think about it.
Right.
So they're like, the dollar amount we might get for that is not worth the extra effort or the complexity
And
of our operation.
you know, I was in Maywood yesterday, and it's like it's so hard to get things done.
Because you're adding complexity to the cities, and they're bad at complexity to start.
And you go, you go for a transfer stamp. You got to go to the first floor, second floor, 6 different times, and go to 3 different offices.
We've all been in Chicago Heights, going back.
Yes. Go downstairs now, then bring it back up here. Once outside it, then go back down and get them to sign it, then bring it back to. It's like, I mean, it's just.
University parks like that.
Oh,
I mean, that are like that.
Look, I mean, it's hard to do business in a lot of Cook County suburbs.
Cool. We're gonna wrap. These guys are around for a few more minutes, and you guys can talk one-on-one, and otherwise grab this. He's gonna switch the slide deck right now. We do have our next grid event that will be in November. Just kind of getting ready for 2025 and a whole bunch of things. We'll talk about new laws and how that's coming up that's gonna affect you guys. But we got the registration open, so you can reserve your spot. So.
Cool.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.